Welcome to episode 62 of Cellar Door Skeptics. Tonight is a rather special night, and we're going to play a quick tribute we have for Carrie Fisher. Unfortunately, she is no longer among the souls on this earth. So this is our dedication to Carrie Fisher.
I saw the movie the other night, and I noticed that as in the original, as in Star Wars, Princess Leia is not the usual damsel in distress. She's very strong, very spunky. She gets to shoot the bad guys and charge the ship.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away!
Hey, are you...
No.
But you look just...
Like her? I've been hearing it all my life.
It's uncanny.
I was up for Princess Leia. I was this close. So who gets it? The one who sleeps with George.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash.
I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
Huh?
So one day you're still alive. Will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way?
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Do you remember that white dress I wore all through the first film? I mean, unless you didn't see Star Wars, in which case, why are you here? So they put the dress on me the first day. They bring me to George. Takes one look at me and he says, "You can't wear a bra underneath that dress." So I say, "Why?" He says, "Because there's no underwear in space." And the man said it with such conviction, too, you know.
Just relax for a moment. You're free as a carbonite. You have hibernation sickness.
I can't see.
Your eyesight will return in time.
Where am I?
Jabba's palace.
It's a good story. I think you just can't bear to let a gorgeous guy like me out of your sight.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
If he was sitting here right now instead of me, what would you say in lieu of this whole challenge that he's put up against Star Trek versus Star Wars?
They're not in the same league. I mean, they have the word star in the title.
True.
And there's a space travel, right? Where do they go to? I don't really... Klingon?
Larnar.
It just sounds like a laundry detergent.
Oh, we understand, don't we, Chief? He had no choice.
Just try it out.
We don't need any of your help.
Your Highness, we must take this last transport. It's our only hope.
Send all troops from Sector 12 to the South Slope to protect the fighter.
Go!
I don't know who you are or where you came from. But from now on, you do as I tell you, okay?
Since you have become the star of the largest grossing movie of all time, it was really only your second movie, do you feel?
No, I'm sort of notorious. I'm not conspicuous in any way. I mean, one wouldn't sort of say, "There's Princess Leia over in the food section. I can go to the market if I want, anytime."
How has it changed your life, though, being in this incredible movie, and now the sequel?
I have much nicer furniture.
Do you think you're happier now than you've ever been?
Yes.
Why?
Well, I'm not happy about being older. It's one of the options. Just because I've learned a lot. I trust myself. I trust my instincts. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I can do, what I can't do. And I've learned a lot. I've been through a lot, and I could go through more, but I hope I don't have to. But if I did, I'd be able to do it. Yes, I'm not going to enjoy dying. I don't think there's so much prep for that, but who knows?
I mean, do you fear death? Do you
No, dying. I fear dying.
Oh.
Anything with pain associated in it.
Right.
I don't like, and I've been there for a couple people when they were dying, and it didn't look that fun. But if I was going to do it, I'd want someone like me around, and I will be there. It will be great.
Rest in peace, Carrie Fisher.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
And welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing, there I said it, Hannah, already.
We're starting out of the gate.
Episode. Thank you so much. We do just quick words. I feel very bad, very unfortunate that Carrie Fisher died. Of all the celebrities that have died, she has meant a lot to me through my childhood. And she was a big advocate for mental health. She was a big advocate for family. And it's just very sad to see her go so soon.
She's got a recent memoir that's come out not too long ago, too. I heard it on NPR the other day with Terry Gross just going over, basically the whole story, what it meant, the trip, the experience of her life. And it was a really great interview. She seemed like she'd really come around and found comfort and peace in the turmoil of Hollywood. It's unfortunate that it seems biology caught up with her. Everybody was saying that the heart attack had gone through, or at least a heart episode, and that she was stable. But in these days, when it comes to the heart and heart disease and stuff, it just shows up out of nowhere, and it's tough to beat.
Yeah, it is. So our condolences to hers and her family, and for all those who are grieving the loss of an amazing feminist and an amazing woman. But without further ado, we have a great show planned for you. What we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit again about Betsy Devos. And yes, I know we've done this before, but we wanted to touch on it again because Hannah brought it back up and he said, hey, I really think this is a big issue. I really think charter schools are going to be some of the worst that we're going to see if she gets her way. Now,
and it's a little bit of a Michigan thing. So we've been broad and giant, and there's two subjects that are going to be Michigan-y for this show. So kind of bringing back some local politics after dealing with the national politics for weeks on end. So yes. I kind of want to get back into it.
Yep. After we talk about that, we have another interview plan for everybody. We're going to interview Travis Civic. He is an artist and a political activist. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about his career, how he brings his music to inspire new generations and youth in the community of Washington State. We're then going to talk about a little bit of a funny article, a science article.
We're just laughing at the words.
We are. I'm having a hard time saying it. Penis bone. We're going to talk about the evolution of the penis bone and why humans don't actually technically have a penis bone. And I don't have to put the explicit tag on, do I, if I say penis?
No,
Hannah?
that's science,
I can say that?
babe.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad I get to say penis without having to put the explicit tag on. And then we're going to end the show by talking about the GOP and if they've even done anything for Flint, Michigan. So I know not the whole show is all centered around local stuff, but we did try to get a little bit closer back to our roots to talk about the local aspects of government inside of Michigan. So, Hannah, tell us a little bit about why you wanted to do the Betsy DeVos segment again, and what we're going to focus on this time.
Well, first off, the headline. I know clickbaity titles are the thing of the future, it seems. This one, I saw this and I said, there's no way I'm not going through that article. If not just to see if it's real. And if it's not real, then to debunk it and share it to tell people, or to basically tell people, not just share it, that it is fake. Betsy DeVos was basically in charge of a nonprofit that's whole goal was to get charter schools to be a much bigger contender in Ohio. And they were found guilty of fraud. They were found guilty of election crimes, and they were fined $5.3 million. They found guilty once, and then they appealed and were found guilty again. And then they had this huge fine, and then it just basically said that she didn't pay it. And Bernie Sanders and other Democrats are rallying, saying if she's going to be in charge of our education system, she has to cover at least the fines that have been levied against her and the corporations or the groups that she's been part of or led, because this is a big deal. And I mean, I just wanted to bring that in there.
So what are some of the fines? I mean, what are the fines versus the organization? So what are the exact things that she violated?
Okay, so they're basically the senators that I mentioned from the Democratic Party, they put an open letter out that said that she should pay these fines, but her group was All Children Matter, and they knowingly violated the law. The senators charged. In 2006, they asked the Ohio Elections Commission if it could contribute more than the $10,000 statutory limit to Ohio-based affiliates. So basically, this is a big group saying, we want to donate more than $10,000 to our subsidiary in Ohio. And they said, no, it would violate the law as it's written. And then, inexplicably, the PAC ignored this advisory opinion and proceeded to contribute $870,000 to that small group in Ohio.
So just
now,
shy
think
of $1
about
million.
that kind of money in local politics. What would almost $1 million do for a little Ohio or a little Michigan town trying to get a law passed? It'd be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I bet some of the campaigns ran around here don't even hit $1 million.
Oh, the whole campaign. Yeah, and so the bipartisan Ohio Elections Commission unanimously found both the federal and Ohio All Children Matter PACs to have violated the state's campaign finance laws and imposed the fines that I mentioned of $5.3 million. But they appealed, right? So they appealed and said, no, we don't think so. Well, another Ohio court subsequently upheld the fines, and they imposed additional fees for failing to pay. So they got more added on when they appealed it. And then, so instead of pay the fines for violating the law, All Children Matter PAC simply ceased operation and never paid the money. So they cheated. They, made a blatant criminal act in an election, trying to push their perspective. And when they got caught, they just threw their hands up, closed the doors, and said, we don't exist anymore. This is the kind of stuff like
that's crazy.
They
don't exist.
Yeah.
That's just insane to me. How can they get away with that? How can anybody just allow that to move on and go, oh, hey, no problem?
That's kind of the corporate world. So in a corporation, the corporation itself is a separate entity from the owners or whatever. It's removed so that if you create something, you can't get sued and lose all of your home, your cars and stuff like that. The corporation itself is a separate legal entity. Well, they set up these PACs like that. So they just, if you say, okay, well, I broke the law, or I owe you more money than I'll ever pay you, I'm just simply going to close down the company. I'm going to close the company down, and it's over. It doesn't exist anymore. All my fees and everything, they just disappear with the company. And sometimes judges say, okay, no, you're cheating, you're embezzling money or whatever. You are now responsible for some of the debts that the company incurred. And then, legally they'll force you to pay it. But in this case, it doesn't seem like that happened. These people just violated the law and then said, we quit.
So do you have any statistics on how many other companies and what other type of companies do that? I know I'm kind of put you on the spot here.
Well, it happened to me. It actually happened to me a few years ago. We had a bill for roughly $5,000 that a small manufacturing shop who did some work for us in the Grand Rapids area, they owed us $5,000 for a project that we did for them. And so we, build them. And then they said, listen, we're never going to pay you. And I said, well, how is that? How can you not pay me? And it's like, listen, you can sue us if you want. It's going to cost you at least $5,000 to do that. And we'll see, maybe they'll give you the $5,000 back. But what we're going to do is we're going to completely shut down the company. And then we're going to start it up again with a different name. And we won't owe you any money anymore. And they did that. And when we talked to a lawyer about it, they were like, yeah, it could cost you $5,000 to $10,000 to get this whole court case to take you 6 months to 2 years. Like, people can do that in the corporate world because regulations and stuff are light. And so the reason this is a big deal, one, Betsy DeVos cheated. This is a cheater. But I would think that she's going to do this with schools, right? She's going to operate schools like businesses. That's what Trump's whole plan for the entire country is. Like, we're just going to run it like a business. If an asset starts losing money, we cut it off. We slice it off, and we don't need it anymore. That's how cold and cruel business is. But I would like to say that children as a resource are not an asset that we can just cut loose when we're not making a profit anymore. One of the things that Devos has long expressed is contempt for public education. She's devoted considerable wealth to fund ALEC-based school choice initiatives. We talked about ALEC on this show before, the American Legislative Exchange Council. And these people are, look into it. There are conservative state legislators and private sector representatives that draft whole models that the conservative states or legislators can put together and just throw into the system that often violate basic rules of decor and ethics. But she has repeatedly said that her leadership role in All the Children Matter is one of her many activities and as a longtime billionaire mega donor. But what she said is that her own goal is to be buying influence. The specific thing that she wrote in a 1997 co-op in Roll Call, she said, we expect return on our investment. And she's talking about private schools and charter schools here. So her return on investment is the financial return. And that is not the way we look at children in this country. It should not be a dollars and cents thing. Like, we're trying to make the country better and try to make our future better by investing time and money into the minds and the future in our children. But the charter school program setup, like, when I see this, that's what I think. Well, it scares me.
That's a sad. How about this? So I'm going to grant you it for a second here, right? I'm just going to grant you that her whole goal and the whole reason she's doing these things is because she wants, she sees children as dollars and cents and how they're going to make us better, right? I'll grant you that for a second. If that's the case, right, then how do we expect children to be equal? How do we expect children to actually survive? So how does that even take into account low-income situations? For example, the guest we're going to talk to here in a few minutes helps out in low-income situations in inner cities. In essence, if she's able to cut that part of society out, all it's going to do is breed another dynasty-type people. We're going to have more Clintons. We're going to have more Bushes of the world, and we're going to separate that gap between, middle and, high income even further. Our middle class is going to just become low class. We're all going to be the same people.
I would say that it would further spread the economic inequality that we are already seeing, and we'll see it even more in our education system. So what?
It's going to mess up that whole. It's going to literally that will mess up the whole dynamic of the desegregation. We talked about that a little bit about a month ago. Desegregation. That would screw that whole thing up, wouldn't it? Because
it would to a certain degree. Because let's face it, the majority of minority classes in this society are ethnic minorities, and they make up the majority of our hyper poor poverty levels. So that obviously, if the good schools, the charter schools are the ones that are going to be getting all the money and finances and getting a good education, and the public schools are going to be defunded and worse and worse and worse. Well, where are the poor kids going to go to? They're going to go to the public schools that don't get anything. But the other thing is that Trump and Betsy want to put vouchers into the system so that these charter schools essentially get around $7,000 a head for their schools, for their students in their schools. And we're going to include the links to the John Oliver segment that really goes into this great. He has a bunch of examples of schools basically cheating. One school, the regulation and oversight was so low from the state in Ohio that they only had 30 kids at the school. When they said they had 450 enrolled. So think about that. They only were really actually teaching 30 kids, and they were getting the money 450 times 7. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but that's a ton of money, and they're, once again, cheating. And oversight is lower in charter schools because it's like a business. They don't want to regulate them out of existence. And I just don't see this as a good functioning model for the long term. And we'll see. I've included from Slate two articles and one from Daily Kos about school fraud, just consistent. In Pennsylvania, tons in Ohio, private charter schools are failing all over the place, and you don't hear about it. And it's weird. Even Democrats support and have praised charter schools all over the country, but they don't really talk about the problems that they have when it comes to people just stealing money from them because there's very little oversight.
Yeah.
And I think Betsy's not going to make it better.
Yeah, well, we don't know. How about let's be fair. She hasn't laid out a plan if they roll out charter schools, what she's going to do. But we could tell by the history that she hasn't done any of that. In your Slate article that you posted, it said this. It says, nationally, in 2007, for-profit management companies ran almost half of the charter schools that are part of the chains or larger networks of schools. By 2010, the most recent year the figures were compiled, the number had dropped to 37%, which is good, according to the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools. That just seems insane to me, though, that for-profit management would even run a school. Like, I get that if for-profit management is working and it's designed to enhance profit sharing, how does that work, though, when your child isn't creating money? So, for example, my son, and we went to a public school, and we had this issue. My son had ADD. We recognized this in second grade, but he was sweet, right? He would run around, and he was running through class. He was getting C's, and they didn't call it C's back then. It was, I don't know what they called it, but basically he was getting equivalent to C's and D's. But he was so nice to the teachers, they didn't care. They're like, oh, he's a sweet kid. He doesn't need help. And it's like, no. Both his parents had ADD. We know this child has ADD. We can see tendencies at home. Now, this is at a public school, right? This is not even a charter school. Do you understand how much time and effort I had to spend to convince the principal to get us, a test? Because the psychologist wouldn't see us to test us unless the school certified it. The school wouldn't do it unless he was failing. And it just seems ridiculous to me. We're recognizing it. Our doctor recognized it. But we couldn't even get him put on medicine or even therapy type plans because of the fact that it's at dollars.
It's red tape and stuff.
Yeah.
I am not in any way saying that our public system does not need reform on an incredibly deep scale. Just look at the Detroit public schools and the fact that 6 of the former principals are in jail right now because they stole millions of dollars. So there's tons of problems in the public schools as well, and we really need to concentrate on that. I just think that putting a business model and making essentially a Wall Street education plan, I don't think that's a good idea. And to me, and what I've seen when it comes to charter schools, I see that competitive idea that it comes to dollars and pennies, standardized tests, not really teaching and understanding each child as an individual, and they're all different. It sees them as a metric, a series of zeros and ones. Did you pass it? Good. Did you fail it? Bad. Like, we can't make our children a one-size-fits-all. If you over-specialize, we're creating just a single type of consumer and a single type of worker. Well, that doesn't work anymore because we have this incredibly diverse market. You don't just get a few basic skills and get a factory job for 40 years. It doesn't work. We're not preparing our kids for the future of being creative and, able to solve problems in entrepreneurship and stuff. I think, basically going through the business ideals where they do that, like the whole point for a for-profit business is to make money. Well, they reduce costs when they can and they increase profit when they can. Well, those are not things that are going to benefit the well-being of a child in my eyes.
Yeah, yes, and that's the sad thing here. The sad thing here is that we have a individual who could take education down the wrong road. Now, how about this, Hannah? Do a lot of the GOP support charter schools, though? That would be yes?
Yeah.
The answer. Okay.
Yeah, they do. The GOP significantly more. The reason being is because they really like the idea of vouchers, where you get a voucher worth this much money for your taxes and stuff, and you can take it to whatever school you want. And they would make private schools and religious schools open for that. So you could send your kid on everybody's tax dollars to the creation equivalent of Ken Ham's Noah's Ark science class. And to me, that is something that violates the separation of church and state, for one, and it's bad education. Would fail any actual scientific metric. And so that's, to me, is a bad thing and should not be allowed. But that's the argument that we have from the GOP, is whether or not religious freedom includes being able to teach your children piffle.
Yes. And so in the Slate article, it goes on to say this too. It says because schools can't move fast enough to build up the network of schools and abilities to help give the specialized needs to the children, investments dry up. So if you're a for-profit school, your investment dries up. Where are they going to get the money from? And that's what you were saying earlier. All these schools are failing and disbanding. They just disappear, and they take the money with it.
And sometimes in the middle of the semester, so a student is lost, just left without anything.
Yeah. And the guest that we had on 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Shit, I can't remember anymore.
Which guest was it?
Amanda. When Amanda was on, she actually worked at a charter school and saw some of this happening when the school funding went down because they didn't have enough kids enrolled. So what happened is you'd have a lot of parents that are moving in and out of the district because of jobs, and then the enrollment would go down, and then they wouldn't get money, and they lost some of their private investments because they weren't hitting top tier in terms of testing. So then what happens? Their money disappears. The school starts making cuts. They start cutting teachers, forcing teachers to work more hours to pay for things out of pocket. The education quality goes down. And here, all the while, they're still taking money out of the government pocket. And yet the government hasn't come in and shut them down. The government's not shutting any of these people down. They're existing. Now, I don't think they exist anymore. I do think that school has gone bankrupt officially.
Probably. But what does that sound like, though? Like that environment that you just described that the teachers and the educators are put in. Are you familiar with what's been happening with Els Fargo?
Yeah.
They're put in a profit is the only thing that matters. They cheated. They did what they had to do. So in this case, you have teachers teaching kids how to ace a test, ace a blue book test, and that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you can solve problems. Can you basically deal with this one test to get the school more money? Can you get here on this one day? That's the only day that matters when they do the census. We don't care about anything else. It becomes in benchmarking where check on the box. Did you learn anything? It doesn't matter. Did we get the money? Okay. So
yes. And so in all fairness, though, Hannah, that's actually that can be used as a counterpoint to public education, because what does public education do? It puts people in boxes.
Oh, I know. That's the reform I was talking about.
Yes. And so, whereas personally, and I don't know what else you have to say, and I'll let you close the segment out here in a minute, Hannah, but for me personally, the best part is that we are going to see a little bit of a different person come into the government to try and change education, right? We're going to see that. My hopes here, and I would say prayers if I was as a praying individual, but my hopes here is that she's going to come in and maybe take some of the good parts of the charter schools and try and push them into education. What I'm afraid of is that she's going to try and cut all funding to public schools and push it into charter schools, which is going to force people to move into that. And that's what we talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago with her is that that's where the fear lies. Can the vouchers come? Will our kids be getting creationist educations? It violates everything that we've ever stood for.
Definitely. So what basically the come away from this is the hope that Betsy DeVos is essentially shown by the world is critical enough to challenge her on some of these things that we don't think is a good idea. That progressive people who don't think that private schools, charter schools are the way of the future, that we should make what we have better. We should learn to be more organic in our education. We should stand up and talk about these things. And education should be a big, big part of our political conversation. And get involved. Talk to your senator. Talk to your congressman. Talk to your representatives. Please just say, listen, I went to a public school and I had an amazing education. I went to Caledonia High School. And while I was there, I thought it was miserable. And then I went to Saginaw Valley State to get my degree in mechanical engineering. And while I was taking classes there, I was stunned at the level of writing capabilities, mathematics that the general education classes, my peers, were at. And I realized that I got an amazing education from a public school. And that's what it takes to say, listen, this is a good school. Do what they did. Find out how to make that bleed into the inner city school systems to make everything better that we have now. And then that would be a great way for Betsy DeVos to make a real big change in our education system and for us to all get involved. But I guess that's going to be the way we're going to round this episode out. We don't have much more except for you to get involved and take a look. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back with Travis Civic Rybarski. Is it? And, I got the name difficulties this time, and we're going to talk a little bit about activism and making some changes in local levels and in national, hopefully.
Yep, we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptic. Hang on to your hats, folks, because we're coming back in a force. We'll be right back, everyone.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Hi, this is Dan, Brian, and Matt with the Godless Revolution podcast. We've had a lot of great guests on this show, such as Russell Glasser, Dan Arrow, Brian Fields, David Silverman, Doug Mesner, a.k.a. Lucian Greaves, and Joey Kirkman, whom we love a lot. We've also had a lot of really cool local guests. And we're a podcast that likes to fight for the separation of church and state and against anti-skepticism of all kinds. You should give us a listen, because if you don't, you're going to be really sad. Make your ears happy. Listen to the Godless Revolution podcast.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
This is Deborah McTaggart from Beyond the Trailer Park, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptic. Thank you so much for... What's that, Hannah?
Metal Edition.
Metal Edition. There you go, Jim. Jim, if you're listening, here you go, buddy. That's the type of music you get to cover one of these episodes, because I bet that's something you probably don't listen to very often.
And then maybe a rock band episode in our future.
Yeah, that's very true. So for all those listening, real quick, last week we had a special music correspondent named Jim Dells. And where's the applause? Is there applause for Jim? Good job, Jeb. Thank you so much for joining us last week. Make sure you go back and check out last week's episode, because we actually do cover music like we've never done before.
So we did the first couple episodes, and then we got lazy.
Lazy?
Well, maybe we just got too slammed.
I'm gonna call you lazy. How about that?
Okay, I can be lazy.
How about that? Anyway, so without further ado, let's get into our next segment here, because I'm very excited to talk to this individual. Actually, our guest last week recommended Travis, and we'll ask him in a quick second if he wants to go by Civic or Travis, because I know he has a stage name, and I don't want to violate that. But what we have here is an individual who has he works for something called Youth Sound Mission, and he also writes all his own music, and he just dropped an EP within the last couple of weeks. So please welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics, Travis Civic, and I'm not going to pronounce your last name.
How
are you tonight, sir?
Right. I am doing great. We can go by Travis, and he got the last name right. Rybarski. He nailed it. Yep.
Good job. If you just so you know, Travis, the gimmick of the show is I can't pronounce people's names. Hannah does that, and I can't pronounce scientific words usually. So
that's why you picked a partner who has the same name as you, so you wouldn't have to learn anything.
That's a good one. It's exactly right. We work very well that way. So So tonight, our guest last week mentioned you, and he sent me a message, said, hey, this guy just dropped a new album. We want you should check him out because I think he would be beneficial to your show. He fits kind of the themes of what you guys talk about. And so I went on your page, I checked one of your songs out, and then I was like, all right, so I'm going to message him. And then I messaged you, and then now here you are. So
here I am.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit, as we begin, tell us a little bit about your background. So, my introduction to you is obviously through Jay and through your music. And then that's when I found out you were telling me about some of your activism and different political things that you get involved with. But I want to start kind of about your music, right? Because it's a little unique. And we'll play some samples here for everybody tonight too. But you do hip hop. You do some hip hop, and
it's the hip hop.
It is. It's a hippity hop, but which is, I'll be honest. I don't dislike hip hop. I do like it. It's just usually yours is a lot different. Yours has a lot slower melody to it. You can actually understand what you say half the time, and for the most part, I don't think I've heard you swear or rap about pimping at all.
No.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
So my advocacy socially and politically and my music have really built off of each other. So I started off rapping not as a musician, but as what we call a battle rapper. So rap battles are where we prepare material about each other, we stand on stage, and we kind of like boast our own style while tearing each other down. I saw some online, challenged a random person to it, we did it. People were into it, and it was getting a lot of views locally when we put the videos up. So some people asked me to create a league around these rap battles. We did that. That became statewide. We raised $5,000 for teen charities by throwing those battle rap events. I was featured on the news for one of the events that we threw, and an organization called Lutheran Community Services, which hosted a state-funded mental health program, reached out to me and said, hey, we have this job position called Youth Partner. On the news, it had shared the fact that I didn't have a stable living environment when I began throwing my events. So I was a teen without any long-term housing, throwing events to raise money for teen shelters to support other people and build myself up in my community. So they said, we have this position. Basically, we take teenagers who have been through some of the similar things as the youth in our program, and we allow them to come in and help kind of bridge the cultural gap that exists between youth who are receiving services and the adults who are providing services. So I came in, started that job. 8 months later, I moved out of that position into a statewide position as a trainer and a facilitator. And so now I work for Youth Sound statewide. And it was about 2 weeks ago that I released my first musical project. So I'm really new to music, but the rapping and the advocacy have been building off each other for the past couple years.
Awesome. So you mentioned you were a youth without a home. Is that correct? So
yeah, I wouldn't say without a home, but definitely without any long-term solution. I was like crashing with a friend basically when I started this advocacy.
So would you care to tell us a little bit about what led to that?
Yeah, I strictly avoid talking about my biological parents and their challenges because I want them to have their business be private. But there was a lot of challenges in my home. When I was 2 years old, I moved from living with my mom to living with my dad, lived with him until I was 16. And then through some intervention by police and CPS systems and stuff like that, I ended up leaving there. So when I was 16, I started living with my brother. I lived there for about 3 years until I was 19, until that was no longer a viable option. And then I crashed with a friend for a month or two. And I stayed all kinds of places within there. I don't really remember the timeline looking back, but I stayed with friends and family friends and friends of family and all that. So eventually I stayed with a friend for about 6 weeks. And then out of that situation, I was adult adopted by a couple in my life. The woman was my teacher, and the man was my boss at work. So they knew me very well. They realized I didn't have a stable environment. They took me in for about a year. So it was a couple months before they adopted me, which was the summer of 2014, that I threw my first event. And then the next month I was adopted. Month after that, I threw my second event. So with their support, I built myself up. And with the events, I built myself up as well. So after about a year living with them, I moved out on my own and then ended up relocating to do some more work out here.
Well, that's awesome. And it's nice to hear stories. You know, a lot of times we hear bad stories, right? What does the news and the media like to do? They like to tear people down. They like the story of putting people I guess I don't want to say in their place, but they use people, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to hear a story, you know, such as your youth that has come out in a positive segment. You're turning around. You're using music to help people. You're using your past experiences to help others that have gone through the same thing. And that's very admirable. So I'll tell you right now, that's very admirable, and you're a very awesome young individual. So those are the type of people we need in our country.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your music here. How about that? Let's go into your music a little bit before we get into some of your other activism. So what your music's obviously got to be driven by your experiences. Do you have a specific song on the album that relates to your past, or how do you kind of go about relating your personal experiences into your music?
Yeah, and that's exactly right about relating my personal experiences. So the way that my career has influenced my music, I kind of want to explain that route, because the field that I work in is peer support. Peer support means providing services to people who have been through the same things you have, having people giving services that can relate to the people they serve, rather than providing services because they have the right education. So all of my work and all of my advocacy is about being supported by people who can relate to you, because it just feels so much better that way. So that peer support background I have has influenced my music a lot. And so all of my music is about inspiring people who have been through similar things as me and helping them make the best of their situation. So there's 5 songs on the album that I just released, and every one of them has a really particular concept or theme or story behind it, and each one has a purpose. So you asked for one song in particular, and I would say track 2, which is called Higher, that's the song I want to bring up because the song is about alcohol, and it's about contemplating whether I think a lot of people are at a place where they're like, is it a problem for me or is it not? Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not fine. Like trying to figure out if they're an alcoholic. A lot of people are in that like gray area where they're self-reflecting and trying to process that. And a lot of people have told me that song touched them a lot. So the first verse of the song is telling the story from a point where I didn't drink in my life for about 13 months straight. I didn't drink at all. And near the end of that 13 months, I wrote a verse addressed to alcohol about the fact that I didn't miss it. And then over the past couple years, I've like dabbled with alcohol more, and I just still question and reflect, is this healthy? How can I be responsible? Is it a problem? Blah, blah, blah. So in the second verse, it's about processing, like getting home from work and having that situation where you're like, I just got home, I want to drink. Is it unhealthy that I'm using alcohol to relax myself? Is that an unhealthy coping mechanism or a totally natural thing? So each of the verses has a really specific concept, and other people who have either struggled with drinking or questioned whether they struggle with drinking have said that song helps them process it. So I think that's the song that has connected with people best.
All right, so we're going to play a little bit from Higher.
Spend a lot of time on you, but I don't miss you. I don't miss a single instant I held on to you or kissed you on the neck or mouth, or who's kicking it with you now, or anything that you're about, because you're no longer an issue. Did you allow all of my insecurities to flow? Tell my homies every secret and emotion that I've shown? Did you disappoint everyone who believed in me, hoping to see me grow? Convince me there was no hope? No, cause you never even met me. I changed for you cause knowing my true heart and soul was threatening. Catch me if you can, I'm done bottling up my chance to have the clarity of glass. Look at me, I'm happier than I've ever been. Severing everything I love away from the stuff I thought I was. I'm settling into the life that I really need. I'm fighting all of my demons, I can finally breathe. Got my head into better things, I'm clean.
Faded on sunsets and moonlight. See, I'm higher, I'm higher. Pay me a year's worth of bar tabs, please don't kill my heart. I'm higher, I'm higher. I'm better than ever when I'm free. I'm better than ever if I'm free. I'm better than ever am I free.
And that is Higher from Travis Civic. So Travis, tell me a little bit, quick question for you. Is that you on the singing vocals and the rapping, or did you have somebody partner with you?
The singing was someone else. All I do is say words that rhyme. Singing is not my specialty.
Singing's not your specialty. Okay.
No, it is not. So Bryson Foster, who's a musician out of Tacoma, Washington, produced the entire EP. So he played live instruments on it, mixed it, engineered it. Basically everything that isn't rapping, Bryson. So he sings on 2 of the songs as well.
Well, cool. And I'll be honest, I like that style a little better. I'll be honest, it's a little bit slower than some of the stuff that I've listened to before. I mean, I'm not big into hip-hop. It's not like my absolute favorite, but I do like that this is a lot slower. I can understand where it's going to go. I can feel where it's going to go, and I don't have to try and rewind it and go, okay, what was that word? What was that word? Where did you go from there?
Mm-hmm.
So in relating to this, so that talks about addiction, and I think everybody in all of our lives has different types of addiction. I think in youth poverty and in people that have a lot of issues inside of their homes, addiction becomes very prevalent. For example, my stepson, his father ran away from home when he was 13, and he struggled with addiction for about 5 years out of his life. And that's a big symptom inside of a lot of poverty instances in a lot of inner cities. And so you talk about a lot of activism. What is the group that you work for now? I believe it's Youth Sound. What do you guys or you all do that helps fight addiction?
So Youth Sound doesn't have a mission statement that's directly related to addiction, but addiction is definitely involved in the work that we do, or specifically recovery from addiction, I should say. Youth Sound is a statewide organization in Washington State, and they're devoted to ensuring that youth voice has an impact on public policies that affect youth. And that carries the work that we do is really diverse, but all of it ties back into that mission. So whatever we get contracts to do is what we end up doing. So I have a really fun project-based job that takes me a lot of different places. Sometimes I serve as a trainer. Sometimes I facilitate meetings. Sometimes I provide coaching to other people who are working in the peer support role. Sometimes I'm managing our social media and social marketing campaigns. So I get to do a lot of different things in the role. But Youth Sound as a whole is based on making sure that youth voice has an impact on public policy, because nobody knows better what types of youth or what types of services youth should be receiving than the youth who are receiving services. So we're making sure that we cut those cultural barriers that stop youth from having an impact on the policies that affect them.
I think that's actually a good point, because, I mean, when we talk about local politics and we talk about what people need, right, and we just talked about Betsy Devos and charter schools, as you heard. And what happens is when you disconnect the local people, you go one of two ways. You either go towards extreme socialism where the government controls everything, or you go to the opposite side where it's a extremely free market where money reigns. And I think that's the big thing here is if we're not willing to talk and listen to the other people that are with us, it's not going to do any good.
Yeah, and in that discussion, I think we're prone to have conversations about education without stopping to ask questions of students. Like, I think that it's most impactful to explain Betsy and her background and the work that she's fighting to do to students, and say, this is what she's trying to do. How does this sound to you? How do you think this would affect your education? What can you do to prevent this and keep an eye on her? What are you going to do when you're older and the systems that she puts in place might still affect your children? And so I think that when it comes to education, we should look to students for answers. When it comes to mental health, we should look to people who are receiving mental health for answers, because they're the ones receiving the services, and they're the ones who understand on the deepest level how those services affect people. And there's this stigma that we shouldn't ask them questions, because if they're receiving mental health services, then maybe they don't understand, or they're not going to provide reliable information, and maybe students or kids don't understand yet. And it's not true at all. They do understand, and they do have the answers, and they should be looked to as the experts.
Well, definitely. And when you talk about those people being involved, those people knowing what's going on in their lives, this brings to mind influences in my first thought when it comes to listening to your music for the first time, and also but basically about some of your influences, what musically has brought you basically to where you are. Because when I listen to your music, I listen to hip hop and a little bit more of a darker, deeper, I guess, genre of the music. So like guys in groups like Tech Nine and Hobson come to mind when I listen to some of your music. Hobson specifically, for one of his songs, The Ill Mind of Hobson, number 5 is a very specific one that I like. You're talking about real world, real life stuff. So I guess for me, that's what I'm feeling from your music, especially on that last one, is For Hire. is because you're talking about real life stuff, and that's some of the stuff that I hear in some of this other rap that isn't mainstream, that isn't money and cash and cars and girls. It's real stuff. It's gritty and it's dark. So I guess some of the influences that you've had in your music, are they into the same vein, or are you taking more of the mainstream and bringing it to your influences and what the messages you want to give?
Well, I listen to underground artists more than I listen to mainstream music, so I'm sure that I've been influenced by them more. Eminem is probably the most mainstream artist that I would listen to regularly, and he's less and less mainstream as time goes on because the fact that he focuses more on what he's saying than the way his music sounds is making him less and less culturally relevant.
And
the way that mainstream... Yeah.
And faster. His song with Tech Nine, Speed 'Em, is insane.
Yeah. It is. So I listen to underground artists a lot more. I'm more influenced by them. And specifically, I'm influenced heavily by battle rappers. So when I think about the artists who affect the way that I write music, it's actually battle rap. So the reason that my lyrics are a lot more dense in their subject matter and a lot more... I think I focus more on writing cleverly and working puns and similes and references and stuff into my music is that I'm used to listening to battle rap where a crowd is listening to you rap a cappella, so the only thing entertaining them is the words that you're saying. You have no catchy beat to fall back on. You have no singer to fall back on. There are no instruments. They're listening to your words and they hear every single word you say. So doing up to 15 battles before I even started putting out music helped me get used to really critiquing every word that I write heavily. So once Bryson helped me translate that writing style into something that would create pleasing music, I'm really proud of what we came up with.
Well, cool. The next song that we want to play is called Take Me Home. And we're going to play a real quick sample, and then we're going to get your input on what it is.
Glad I never had to find out.
Couldn't find the light for the life of me. Honestly, I didn't really need it. Home was farther than my heart was, and I was never close enough to really find a reason. Oh, and I was gone. You were still there for me. Home was farther than my heart was, and I was never close enough to really find a reason. Oh.
Born into a trailer on the east side of town, back porch covered in garbage, no street lights around. German shepherd named Diamond was the cul-de-sac's keeper. Sarcastic, loving, tired queen was rolling that reefer. Two teenage sisters fighting, both of us too young to grasp it. To this day I never planned to understand half of what happened, but I was 2 and you were 5, and I got through and you survived. And all that matters now is that I always had you at my side, cause January 1397 was the closer. Funny how a fire managed to make our lives a little colder. Melted Power Rangers from the ashes told us be gone. Bunch of other stuff happened I don't feel the need to speak on, and we moved as a single confused unit into the next life. Woke up in a different color trailer on the west side, a land of pride where nothing we felt was spoken. I was chained till you came back for me, the spell was broken. So I don't know what I would do without you. I don't know for sure if I'd have climbed out. Don't know what I would do without you. Just glad I never had to find out.
Couldn't find the light for the life of me. Honestly, I didn't really need it. Home was farther than my heart was, and I was never close enough to really find a reason. Oh, and I was gone. You were still there for me. Home was farther than my heart was, and I was never close enough to really find a reason. Oh.
No, this will never be ending. We got a family addicted to vengeance, and they'll be offended. Say I presented lies about every person that I mentioned. We don't know the truth.
And that was Take Me Home.
That brings back some old school vibe. The low rolling beat brings back like some Cypress Hill.
So,
Hey, you guys are cutting. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I know. Hold on.
I'm currently.
Well, I can't afford it. Fine.
Are we getting anything?
Yeah.
Can they hear us on Spreaker?
Hello?
Know that for every struggle there's a reason. Don't need to attack him, just give me my time. You taught me to reflect and look into my mind. Forgive or forget, that's a fine line. But I don't gotta look back, cause I know you got mine. I'm sorry for every time I hurt you on a road.
Hello? Okay. Hey, I think.
But I hope it's a start to describe the way that I feel, cause I don't know what I would do without you. I don't know for sure if I'd have climbed out. Don't know what
I know.
I would do without you.
I'm restarting.
Wrong, are we right? Are we right? Heart fades from the dark to the dark. I don't wanna wait for the morning to break for me. Don't wait to be happy. Humans are headed for inevitable doom. It's pathetic, but it's true. We can't even think twice about anything we do. We give all of our attention to the irrelevant news being shredded through the television tube. Horridly fake faces, place, orientation over glory and patience. No pressure, it's cool, but if I can't agree with you, I go to hell, and I can go to heaven if I do. Well, that's incredible news. About 50 other religions say the exact same things. Well, better be extra clever when I choose. Yeah, with over 200 man-made religions from Buddhism to Hindu, there's gonna be like a 1 in a billion chance that any of them is true. But why we more worried about Christianity and Islam than humanity? Taking care of the planet we were given, cause it's a dog-eat-dog world. Animalistic cannibalism, kids are skipping class for cannabis. It's in swerving, there isn't a chance of addiction. Even in Richland, which is the land of the rich, kids are held ransom by pimps, scamming every chance that they get. Checking my Android Amber system, another kid kidnapped, feds are demanding assistance. But they got a bad rap for running rampant and blasting our kids.
All right.
So if you help them or give them a hand, then you'll be a rat and a snitch. Man,
Sorry about that.
Most wicked animal in existence. I'm gagging.
I don't know why that happened, but we are back, hopefully. Are you there, Hannah?
I am here. I have more cans of happy.
Are we wrong? Are we right? Hard fades from the dark to the. I don't wanna wait for the morning to break for me. Don't wait to be happy. But for every reaction, there's another reaction. And for every man weeping, there's another 3 laughing. For every crooked thought, there's another free passion. As long as we take the time to see
Can you hear us?
we lacking.
Yes.
We got it pretty good.
Hello,
around
how
this
about
neck of
now?
the woods. Beautiful religious diversity.
Can you hear
centered
us,
on good
Hannah?
law enforcement
Yeah,
officials
I can
ready
hear
to
you.
protect you with
Okay.
blood and a sense of community, even in the depth of the hood. Parks in the middle of cities fuse nature and man. Amazing
music
whether
still
it's
playing?
all red.
Yeah, I started the music, so thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. We had a slight connection problem.
Slight?
Yeah, my
Slight.
Skype
that
crashed
was a Trump
my whole
foreign
computer.
policy crash there.
Yeah. Frickin' Trump. So we'll see if the Skype will load back up. In the meantime, very sorry. Usually we don't have any of that. Hopefully we can edit that out before it goes live.
Well, you know what? I will say this: the guy's rap style, the guy's laid back, smooth rolls, like what I was saying when it cut out, basically brings back to mind not so much old school. Like we're not talking like Funk Master Flex and the hip hop, the hippity, the hip hop. We're not talking about that, but like old school when it comes to us and our 30, 32, 33, whatever generations. Like we hear stuff like Cypress Hill, like the slow rolling, boom, like low rolling, smooth beat and easy, like laid back vocals that are they're not there just because of their vocal harmonies. Like there's a message there, and it's good stuff. And it's different than what's popular now. It's one of the reasons why I can't get behind a lot of hip hop nowadays. Like unless, like he was saying earlier, it's underground. Like underground stuff is good. You just don't hear it ever.
Yeah, that is true. So I don't know where we were at with that song. Hopefully the whole song worked out.
Yeah, maybe it was just playing while we were sitting here trying to not light our heads on fire while the music was blasting all over the place. But I mean, definitely, we get him back on. We're gonna have him just close out and say where people can find him, where people can maybe book him, get him on some live gigs or whatever. But I mean, I really liked what he has. I like some of his messages. We'll see, I guess, what he thinks about coming on to the Big Dirty Skeptics show, because we love progression, we love progress, and we love working with people and talking to people that we wouldn't usually have conversations with, and maybe we disagree on certain things, but when it comes to getting kids involved, getting people the mental health care they need, getting people, an outlet, music maybe, that's awesome, that's great. It's a place where we can all get along, because I mean, let's face it, if it's going to help the kids, I don't care how it happens. And we can have our existential teleological disagreements later on. If it helps the kids and it helps people that need it, I will work with anyone and everyone to help that happen. And it sounds like this kid is willing to do the same.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. Yeah. No.
Sorry.
I'm pissed. My Apple Mountain of amazing has just had a chaotic aneurysm
Yeah, for
At least you have a nice background. That's pretty sweet.
do. I have a nice background. My Skype is just being a poop today. Oh, hey, look.
It's alive. It's alive. There's the pinwheel of death.
Yeah, it always does that. Oh, there it goes. Good Lord.
This is a Macintosh phenomenon that I'm not entirely familiar with. I've seen it time to time because my wife is a Mac person with all of her photo editing and stuff. But when it comes to like that spinning, colorful, like I'm guessing they try to make it a little bit less insidious, but it's pretty aggressive.
So.
That spin, and you feel pain and horror.
It is. Okay, so we are back. We got the guests back. Thank you so much, Travis, for sticking around. Sorry for that.
No problem.
It is what it is, I guess. So I lost all my notes for a second. So anyway, you were we played the last song, "Take Me Home," and you tell us a little bit about that song and what inspired you to write that song.
So "Take Me Home," the song that was just playing was Louder. The one before that, "Take Me Home," was the first verse was basically a really, really brief glimpse into my backstory, my childhood, and kind of hinting at some of the challenges that my parents experienced without like putting them on blast for their stuff. So the first verse of "Take Me Home" is about a glimpse into my childhood and my backstory, and then the second verse of "Take Me Home" is the story of how I accepted my upbringing and forgave my family for whatever happened, inspired by my brother. My brother's the most forgiving and humble and gracious person that I know, and learning from him has really helped me adapt to my family. In the times where I'm like, oh, let's go to war and do this and that, my brother's like, it's fine, forgive them, people are people. So first verse is the story, second verse is paying homage to him. That's the concept of the song.
Awesome. So the last song that we have, and I do want to play the last song because with the Meltdown, we've taken some time up, and I want to talk a little bit about your organization you volunteer for. But the last song is called Louder. Tell us, like 1,000-foot level, what that song is about, and then we'll play the first verse of that and come back to it.
So the concept of Louder is that the first verse is me walking down the street and expressing a pessimistic view of everything that I observe. So looking at businesses and churches and people and cars and everything and just saying, look how broken our system is and how much change needs to happen. And then the second verse is kind of taking the opposite perspective and seeing the good in everything. So the song is just inspired by the fact that my job is to help change behavioral health systems, and that's hard because sometimes it makes me a pessimist. Like I'm looking for things that are broken that need to change, and that's not helpful. So how do you identify what's wrong with your community and also appreciate what's good with your community? The song is about that challenge.
Awesome. All right, this is Louder by Travis Civic.
Are we wrong? Are we right? Are we right? Heart fades from the dark to the light. I don't want to wait for the morning to break for me. Are we wrong? Are we right? Are we right? Heart fades from the dark to the light. I don't wanna wait for the morning to break for me. Don't wait to be happy. Humans are headed for inevitable doom. It's pathetic, but it's true. We can't even think twice about anything we do. We give all of our attention to the irrelevant news being shredded through the television tube. Horridly fake faces, place, orientation over glory and patience. No pressure, it's cool, but if I can't agree with you, I go to hell, and I can go to heaven if I do. Well, that's incredible news. About 50 other religions say the exact same things. One better be extra clever when I choose. Yeah, with over 200 man-made religions from Buddhism to Hindu, there's gonna be like a 1 in a billion chance that any of them is true. But why we more worried about Christianity and Islam than humanity? Taking care of the planet we were given, cause it's a dog-eat-dog world. Animalistic cannibalism, kids are skipping class for cannabis. It's swerving, there isn't a chance of addiction. Even in Richland, which is the land of the rich, kids are held ransom by pimps, scamming every chance that they get. Checking my Android Amber system, another kid kidnapped, feds are demanding assistance. But they got a bad rap for running rampant and blasting our kids. So if you help them or give them a hand, then you'll be a rat and a snitch. Man has to be the most wicked animal in existence. I'm gagging, I'm sick. Are we wrong? Are we right? Heart fades from the dark to the light. I don't wanna wait for the morning to break for me. Are we wrong? Are we right? Heart fades from the dark to the light. I don't wanna wait for the morning to break for me. Don't wait to be happy.
All right, and that is Louder by Travis Civic. Thank you again, Travis, for joining us. So in that song, and I kind of want to, it's not a dig at you, so don't take this as a dig. But you are on a secular show, and we both come from a very atheistic perspective. And I'll be honest, when the guy first introduced us, he didn't say that you were a Christian or anything like that. And then you're like, well, I worked at Lutheran services, and then I listened to the song, and I was like, okay, well, hold on a second. You talk about how all these different religions could be wrong or could be right. And so my bigger question is how do you relate your experiences to your beliefs, and then do you use those in how you work with some of the inner city children and some of the people that you work with through Youth Sound?
Mm-hmm. Well, my faith and my career are actually really separate. All of the work that I've done has been funded by Medicaid and funded by state grants primarily. So when I was working at Lutheran Community Services, I worked for a program called the WISE program that they held the contract for. So my work there wasn't religiously affiliated. Youth Sound is not religiously affiliated at all. So my career has been totally separate from my faith. And the reason that the song says that about religion is that each of the verses talks about the exact same topics and just has the opposite perspective on them. So the first verse talks about police brutality, and then the way that religions silo themselves and get narrow-minded and get in echo chambers. And then the second verse talks about the same exact topics, but with a positive kind of impression of them. So in the first verse, what I was saying was that it's really upsetting to look at churches who have convinced themselves that they have the right answers and that other religions are just simply wrong or are going to hell, or whatever that religious institution thinks about other religions. It's sad. And Jay, who referred me to the show, I believe is actually a Christian as well, or at least attends church. But he keeps that really separate from his political work and his career. Me and Jay are really similar in the sense that our faith motivates us, but our faith doesn't drive the work that we do, and we view faith as something that needs to continuously be adapted by the things that we learn about our physical world. So we're all about science over faith when it comes to the way that we treat other people, because our career should be driven by the best information possible. And religions have ideas and motivations and beliefs, and that's faith, and that's a really positive thing, factually beneficial for people. But on the other hand, as a politician, we should make decisions based on what science knows. As a mental health employee, I need to make decisions based on what science knows about mental health. So my work in mental health and my faith are completely separate things. And the view that I expressed in that first verse there isn't the way that I talk about religion, but it was important for me to say that I have that frustration. And me and all of my Christian friends talk about the fact that we're not right and other people are wrong. That's just a really bad way to talk about other people.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And, the one thing that I admire in some aspects is if you're going to keep it separate, if you're going to keep it away from any of the other possibilities, right? The separation of church and state. The big thing for us here at Cellar Door Skeptics is that you can be of a personal faith, but as long as you don't force it on somebody else, we're okay with that. I'll be honest, I would be very interested to have you on again at some point to have the conversation of why you ever believe, but I don't really feel that's relevant to the majority of daily conversations, right? And a lot of what our show is about being skeptical about different ideas. And for me to be picking on Christianity is a little unfair, right? That's not a fair transition. And I won't lie and say that I didn't have a previous show where we did some of those things. And we spent, I don't know, Hannah, what was it, 3 hours a show having conversations with Christians, But in this realm, and what we're trying to accomplish here is our goal is to get your word out. What do you do? And we're very excited to hear that you keep your personal beliefs separate from how you're working with the inner city youth of today.
Right. And if a young person practiced a different religion and I, as their youth partner, could help them in their recovery by practicing their religion with them, I would sit down and read the Quran with them, or I would pray with them in a way that I'm not used to praying. And me and Jay and all of the other Christians who I associate with really don't view like we're right and they're wrong. And the reason is that I'm all about breaking down cultural walls and opening up echo chambers. So people would listen to my music who wouldn't normally listen to hip hop because it's hip hop, but it's different. And people would be willing to talk to me about associating with the Democratic Party, who would normally say, like, Democrats bad. I identify as a Democrat, and I want to talk about things outside of that so that I bring new people into this culture that I practice. And if somebody was considering whether they wanted to identify as a Christian, or if they wanted to pick up faith or believe, or however you word that, they're more likely to come to me, who lets it be a personal thing, than go to the person who's been trying to convince them to be a Christian all this time. When I chose to begin practicing the Christian religion, I didn't go talk to people who had been trying to shove it down my throat. I went and talked to people who I felt were a good example of what I thought the religion should be. So I think that I can help more people listen to rap. I think I can help more people practice faith more similar to mine. I think I can help more people associate with the Democratic Party and help me change it, because I'm willing to reach out of my silo and connect with people in different ways.
This definitely sounds like the kind of idea that when we talk about the changes in the evolution, as Dan Dennett says, for faith and religion, and the way that they can possibly move forward, this is the kind of area that we talk about where we can all get together and talk more. I would love to have these conversations be more regular and have people of your faith in this more open nature. So your music's awesome. We really had a great time checking this out. And I will recommend this to people, and I would love to hear what anybody else thinks. Let's say you're an open and ardent atheist, and what do you think of this music? Is this cool? Is it something that you think, hey, great, you know what, this is kind of bridging the gap and we like it? Let us know. Check us out at Cellar Door Skeptics and Facebook/Cellar Door Skeptics. And also check out Civic's music, man. Check it out and let him know what he thinks as well.
Yep. So as we close, Travis, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you. What's the best way? And if you have a Twitter, a Facebook, where do you want people to contact you at?
Well, I'm super open about accepting friend requests on Facebook, and I like building up my personal profile. So you can add me at Travis Civic Rybarski. For the last name, you can just put in RY. Hopefully, it'll fill in the rest. If you want to find my music, that's available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Tidal if people use that, Amazon, all those places. Look up Civic Upside EP and you'll find it there. If you want to order a physical copy, you can do that at civicwashington.bandcamp.com. And then all my social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, are at Civic Washington.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Civic, for joining us tonight. It was a good conversation. And we'll talk about having you back on to talk about your faith sometime. How about that? Because I don't get enough of those conversations with Hannah here, because he's too like-minded to me. So
yeah, let's open up that silo. I'm down. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break, because that's what we have to do. Because if we don't take a quick commercial break,
how are we going to refill our glasses?
How do we refill the glasses? So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have a science segment talking about the penis bone. And I can say that, and I haven't had to turn explicit tag on. No explicit tag. We're going to talk about the penis bone, and we're going to analyze why humans no longer have an actual bone that comes out of their penis. Make sure you stick around, because we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
This is Heretic Woman, part of the panel of Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I talk to activists, bloggers, and podcasters about the intersections between social justice and humanism. Go to www.byanymeans.com, that's by spelled B-I, to listen to the podcast and read my blog. Besides, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
As if you couldn't get enough of us already, make sure you check us out on Twitter at Cellar Door Skep. Follow us, share our tweets, and hell, tweet at us any questions you have using Cellar Door Skeptics hashtag. Remember, follow us on Twitter for all our recent shows. Now, back to the show.
This is C-Web from ParanormalSkepticAcademy.com, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. What's that?
Now, back to the show.
All right. right. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for joining us.
The burning, smoldering remains of Cellar Door Skeptics.
Yeah, we haven't burnt the house down yet. I almost threw my glass at the wall, but hey, we've got it all back under control, and we're coming back to you live. So if you're not tuning in live, make sure you come over. We air Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can join us right in the chat with all the lovely people that join us every night, well, every week during the night. And we have such a great time hanging out with everybody. So
it's getting pretty lewd in there right now. We've got the penis bone segment coming up here, and let's just face it, everybody likes saying those two words that close together.
We want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon sponsors, Alan and Denny. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to become and join the ranks and sponsor our show, please head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor the hosts and their charity of choice. Patreons get to help us create better content, become better activists, and we're going to help you get a little bit healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink every week. So go over, sponsor us on Patreon, because we're the show that brings the discussion with the sources. Yes, we have multiple sources.
Yeah, we got a pretty fat list again. Not as bad as we've had in some of our Blue Link massacres, but it's a pretty good one. We got a couple extra links, things that we won't even talk about, but people can read about because it's a resource just to have. We're not hoarders, but it's close. It's close.
Anyway, so head over to Spreaker if you want to help sponsor us. We donate a percentage of everything that we bring in towards charity, and the rest goes into funding basically the Spreaker account and the website. So
preventing crashes in the future.
And hopefully we'll prevent crashes in the future. Yes. So, Hannah, we decided tonight to do a special science segment, one that we were hoping would make everybody laugh. And I'll be honest, it's one of those things that randomly got tweeted, and I saw it, and I was like, holy crap, this can't be true. People couldn't have had bones in their penises. That's illogical to me. That just makes no sense, you know?
A floating bone. It's not attached to the skeleton. It is a separate floating bone.
Yes. And so what happened was there's an article from Scientific America, and what they did is they reprinted the essay and then kind of put some of their opinions in, and the essay's from The Conversation, which if you follow my links in the description, it kind of goes to The Conversation and then goes to the Royal Society of Publishing, which is where the actual study came from. And the name of it is, and I'm going to butcher this, is called Post-Computulary Sexual Selection Influences Baculum Evolution in Primates and Carnivores.
That was pretty good. You hit all those pretty good.
I did. I think that deserves a shot. Maybe that deserves a shot here in a second. But what it talks about is about the extreme morphological variability of the baculum across mammals throughout the different, parts of evolution, right? And how it works through sexual selection. So what's the point of the penis bone? Did we ever have penis bones? And I'm going to just say that, and just like Jim says, he's not a penis expert, and we know that, Jim. But
sorry, that wasn't expected. That was a genuine laugh. Thanks, Jim. We really thought you were.
Yeah, but the research talks a little bit about where the organs was used, when did we lose it, and I thought it would be really good for the conversation.
I was surprised the fact that most primate males have a baculum still, so humans are rather an oddity according to Scientific American, and that they don't have one. In a handful of extraordinary circumstances, they say, human males have formed bones in the soft tissue at the end of their penises, but this is a rare abnormality, not a baculum or like an evolutionary regression or a genetic trait turning back on for something that obviously could potentially have been in our past. But there's a new study, basically from the Proceedings of the Royal Society B, and this person, Kit Opie, and I, the person who wrote the article,
Wait, you wrote the article, Hannah?
I wish I was published in Scientific American, my friend.
Is this why
we're doing direct quotations here, and it's how the baculum developed in mammals by studying how it is distributed across different species in light of their pattern of descent. So this is phylogenetics. If you're a fan of Aaron Ra, this is probably his second favorite word behind beer.
Or Viking. Viking too?
Yes, or Harley. I don't know. Well, let's say top 5.
Top 5. All right. So what
Why do they need it?
What they did is they talk about this, and they said, we show that the baculum first evolved after placental and non-placental mammals split about 145 million years ago, but before the most recent common ancestor of primates and carnivores evolved about 95 million years ago. So that kind of puts a pretty far range. I don't think we knew any of those ancestors, Hannah, and I don't even think I want to go great, because we'd be here for probably 500,000 years just saying that word.
No, I'm pretty sure they covered it in like the 9,000 different names they gave in the biblical account when they talk about every generation in the most boring possible chapter ever written, ever.
Yes.
Whenever I read those, it's like, here's 35 names just of people.
So they go on to say, why on earth would an animal need a bone in their penis in the first place? All right, that's a fair question, because why would we need them? Jim thinks it's because we didn't play with our ding-dongs all day. All right, fair assumption.
So we stopped and we just evolved and not needed it anymore?
Well, that's what Jim thinks. So let's
That's
read
a
on.
pretty good hypothesis.
So one of the theories is that why it became handy is because in certain species, such as cats, a female's body doesn't release its eggs until she mates. And some argue that the baculum may help to trigger stimulation in females and trigger ovulation. Another theory, somewhat more colorfully named, and I'll let Hannah say this one.
This is the vaginal friction hypothesis.
And this essentially argues that the baculum acts as a shoehorn, enabling a male to overcome any friction and squeeze itself into a male. Now,
I'm guessing this is something like what the dogs do when they're stuck together. Like it takes like a battle to get them together, and then they're stuck for a certain period of time. I don't know if you've never seen the dogs doing that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it's kind of like, when the penis head swells and it doesn't allow itself to be removed, so the woman can't get away. Now, this almost feels like early forms of rape. And maybe this is the social justice warrior coming out in me, but
all I know
evolution is rape.
Well, Mother Nature, basically nature isn't very fond of, I would say, social decor. There's no... Most of the time, it's a very patriarchal and very domineering type process when it comes to wild animals mating. There isn't a whole lot of, I guess, there's a lot of social dancing and structuring, but once the decision's been made, it's very aggressive. It's not very soft and colorful and emotional and, I guess, relationship driven like what we have. So, yeah, it's pretty brutal out there.
Yes. So they talk about, basically, because if you can prolong copulation like this, it is a way for a male to prevent a female from sneaking off and mating with somebody else because their penis is inside there. So if you think about how long it takes a sperm to impregnate an egg and how long, what can you do? And what if there's a bunch of different ones, could it be somebody else's offspring inside of there, right? This would be a way to help prevent that. So in an evolutionary wise, understanding, this makes a lot of sense, because if you were able to create your offspring versus somebody else's offspring, your lineage will live on longer.
And then there's also the basic information when it comes to the actual copulation itself. It says, what about humans? If the penis bone is so important in competing for a mate and prolonging copulation, then why don't we have one? Well, the short answer is that humans don't quite make it into the prolonged intromission category. This is where we're talking about like animals being stuck together. The average duration from penetration to ejaculation for human males is less than 2 minutes. So everybody out there who has, I guess, a social insecurity about not lasting as long as all of the social, I guess, myths when it comes to pornography and stuff, most people are not our sting in the tantric sex for 6 hours or whatever. On average, most of the copulation apparently for the ejaculation for males is 2 minutes, and that's pretty standard across the board. And then it says bonobo apes, they only copulate for 15 seconds at a time, and they still have a baculum. So there are things that are, I guess, counterintuitive and expected and unexpected. This isn't like a absolute lockdown theory. There's a lot of people that are talking about a bunch of different information and trying to figure out the best idea, and these are kind of the leading ideas of the time right now.
Yeah, and one of the things I think is important to look at here is right, as we evolve, we get rid of different traits and we enhance other traits, right? And so if we needed one back in the day to do this, and it's kind of funny because I'll be honest, Hannah, I've been watching the BBC channel has called Planet Earth 2.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they don't have a bunch of mating sequences in them, but they do talk about a lot of different avenues inside of, the animal kingdom. And it talks about how different animals evolve different techniques. For instance, there's this bird that is in this big clearing in Africa. And what they do is they circle and they take all this hay down and they build little mounds and then they jump from them. They do. They're like jumping birds. They're the best bird ever. I'm just going to say this right there. They're the best bird ever.
Man,
and they're not called fluffers. But they do. What they do is they jump on their mounds and then they expand their feathers, and that's how they attract a mate.
That's the ritualized mating dance then, jumping and puffing.
Yes.
Very cool.
And if the longer they jump and the higher they jump, and if they can outjump all the other males, that's what attracts the female. If you look at that and you compound all of that through all the animal kingdom and continue to move through all the species, it makes sense why we would no longer need that bone, because we no longer are just root, grunt, and, copulate beasts anymore.
Oh, yeah.
We've evolved our mentality. We've evolved our understanding, which is kind of why, when we talk about this, maybe this is wrong of me to say, but this is why we're smarter than our parents are to a point, and why our kids should be smarter than us, hopefully. And that's why if you watch social justice and you watch, rights that people get, you see it gets better a little bit at a time. And that's why you have a hard time going from, one thing to another. That's why socialism isn't possible per se right now, and giving everybody what they need isn't possible right now, because we haven't evolved intelligent enough ways to make it happen. We're still stuck using old, issue-driven ways. And
so we're talking about our social structures, basically what happens, how our biological and physiological evolution has actually been changed by the way our social structures have evolved as well. So humans have had social structures when it comes to the evolution from the family structure to a grouping of family structures to small cities, and then the creation of agriculture, and then the creation of small cities and city-states, and now we're in nation-states. Like that evolution, that process, that has changed the way we and things around us have evolved. When it comes to artificial selection instead of natural selection, the fact that dogs are no longer wolves is a great macro and micro evolutionary example of to what social factors on evolution can happen. And this could be something that could be a trait that was slowly and changed over time, which is why we are a rarity when it's the most primate species still have a baculum. But scientists are only just beginning to piece together the function of this most unusual bone, probably because it doesn't really happen that much in humans, if at all. And so the clear is that changes in primate baculum are driven at least partly by a species mating strategy, and I would argue that's part of our social structure system. So the picture seems to be emerging that under high levels of sexual competition, bigger is better when it comes to the penis bone. That's the Scientific American, and a great, interesting, fun, and let's face it, you should be comfortable with this entire conversation. Saying penis and sex and ejaculation, it shouldn't make you feel weird. This is great stuff to learn more about humans and biology and life and everything that comes to it, and try to get rid of that I guess negative feeling that you get when you talk about natural human biology. This is awesome stuff to learn about.
Exactly. So that was a fun science segment, Hannah. That was funner than any of the science segments you've ever given us. No laughs. I got last out of penis, but I never got last out of that.
I didn't really set that one up. That was a lot of fantastic there.
It was. So they end the article by saying, by compromising these findings across orders and examining the baculum through phylogenetic framework, we could begin to build a more comprehensive picture that ultimately functions of the baculum and how it's evolved with our ancestors. Check out all the articles. Make sure you read what the actual study shows, and we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey, my name is Wesley. I'm from the Atheist Nomads podcast. Kick back a while and listen to my friends on the Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
Hey, what's up? I'm Steve Hayes.
And I'm Dave Curry.
And we're from Prophetcast.
And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics
on the Fox News Network.
They're not affiliated with Fox.
Everyone's a Fox affiliate.
Now, back to the show.
Oh, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for joining us again for another episode 62. And it's funny, as I was running to the bathroom real quick, and I got to wash my hands, and I'm sitting there thinking, I got to wash my hands, got to get run. I can hear a movie in the background that my kids are watching with my wife. And I heard this unique voice.
Uh-oh.
I did, and you know what it reminded me of, Hannah?
Krampus.
It did, but it wasn't Krampus, because my kids are too young to watch Krampus. It was the Grinch. It was the Grinch, and I was like, holy shit, how did Hannah get on TV so fast? Anyway, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around through another episode. Our last segment tonight, and yes, it is our last segment, and we will be under 2 hours tonight. That'll be like the first time in forever.
Once we edit out the craziness for the dead spot in the middle.
Yeah, the dead spot. We want to end the episode talking about House Republicans shutting down the investigation for Flint water. And to me, that's kind of interesting here, because that was a big thing, right? That was a big thing. There was criminal investigation discussing whether, it had the Republicans inside of Michigan had misused information, had ignored it, had allowed it to just go by the wayside. And yet here we are with another article from Salon that talks about how House Republicans just shut down the investigation to the Flint water crisis. So hold on a second. How does that happen, Hannah?
I don't know. It's terrible. That's what it is. When we talk about like Trump and Hillary and Bernie, everybody was traversing the state. I'm pretty sure Mike Pence was out and like some pretty heavy-duty evangelical churches screaming and yelling about how Michigan mattered and how the Flint people deserve fresh water and how everybody screwed everybody over. Well, guess what? The election's over. I would love to hear how Flint is still important to the campaigns that were, so in love with getting Michigan, the swing state, surprisingly, of this election, or one of them anyways, to to vote for them because Michigan was up in the air. Bernie Sanders took it during the primary. It was one of the biggest upsets in the history of upsets, apparently, according to 538, where Nate Silver ate his fedora, which I'm assuming that he wears. But seriously, this was a big deal. They let the independents vote in our primary, and we said, we're not a huge fan of really either of the candidates. And as far as I know, Ted Cruz won West Michigan. So Trump and Hillary, neither of them were big primary winners. And so they came here and they said Flint deserved better, that Flint was given a bad, raw deal, and they were going to be the one that could save it. They could fix it. They could help it. Well, the election's over, and been pretty quiet on the GOP front when it comes to saving Flint. And that was the whole reason why this article really hit home for me. Is that they're like, hey, we're done. We're done. We don't need to do any more research. We know what happened. It's the EPA's fault, and they should fix it.
Before we go too far, though, Hannah, I think we need to do a celebratory shot. Because it's Cellar Door Skeptics. It's the end of the episode, right? We got to do a celebratory shot because it's very unfair, in my opinion, that these people should still be struggling.
I don't know if it'd be celebratory then. Maybe it would be like a celebratory or I don't know. What would it be, like a sacrifice?
It's a way for us to try and help feel bad for these people in Flint because we live in Michigan too, and our water isn't compromised, and it's unfair. Why should we have water that's uncompromised, but they still continue to have shitty water?
So drink some for your homie?
Yeah, and it's disgusting because, one of the big things that I pointed out, and again, this is just the SJW coming out of me, but you look at Flint and you look at the minority statuses in Flint, and then you look at Grand Rapids, and you can see a huge difference. And what's disgusting is here we have, and in the article it talks about this, it starts out by saying Barack Obama signed a bill on Friday authorizing $170 million to address the problem of the lead being found in the drinking water in Flint. That's good, right?
Yeah.
That's good. But how are they going to distribute the money? But then all of a sudden the Republicans in the House quietly closed a year-long investigation into the disaster. And they don't even know, they don't even have a conclusion. Nobody's been tried. Nobody's been removed from office. None of these things have happened.
Nope.
And nothing.
They didn't even get, there was critical information. Rick Snyder, or as we love to call him on the show, Dick Snyder, Tricky Dick Snyder, he did not give certain information. He never gave all of his emails. This is another email scandal, right? He didn't give all of his information. He didn't divulge everything. He didn't show everyone the whole deal. And I guess just because politicians are above the law and they don't have to completely submit to requests from courts like you and I would. If you and I were subpoenas and our information was subpoenaed and we didn't give it all, we would be in jail in no time. But if you're a big wig GOP guy, you just get a free pass. So late on Friday afternoon, this was 2 weeks ago, Jason Chaffetz, chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, sent a pair of letters announcing the end of his investigation. His letters offered no new information and essentially summarized what had already been revealed about the crisis in several high-profile hearings earlier in the year. So basically, he said he's done, and here's all the stuff that I found. No new information. No, I guess, major discoveries or anything. And so, over a year ago, the whole start of this, and we've talked about this on the show, Karen Weaver this declared a state of emergency. She was Flint's mayor because her city's supply of poisonous water was, danger. The Legionnaire's disease and lead poisoning was just skyrocketing, and it still remains undrinkable. The Michigan court, I believe it was the Michigan Supreme Court, said that the state of Michigan has to deliver the water to the people in Flint because they have to drive to get bottled water so they can take showers, wash their hands, drink, make food, cook with it, whatever. I mean, this is an undue burden on the poor people who live in that area anyways. I mean, they can't take hours out of their day to go drive and do this kind of stuff. So the court said, no, the state should be responsible to give them this water because they screwed up so badly. Well, I mean, I think that's okay. So Flint's water woes date from 2014, and we've talked about it in the past. If anyone wants to really go into it, we went much more in depth in the past, basically how and what the water was supposed to come from the Great Lakes, and it was switched over from the Detroit River, and all kinds of bureaucratic horse garbage is the reason. And the emergency manager and the people that were appointed by the GOP Republican governor, which essentially superseded local votes. So the people in the local elections voted to have this person lead. Well, the governor said, nope, there's an emergency here. I'm going to put this one person in charge. I picked them. You don't have a choice. And these people made these decisions and drove this water into unhealthy conditions. And the lead Democrat in these oversight committees said they wanted to subpoena Governor Snyder. They wanted the information. They wanted it all. And Chaffetz basically said that there's a series of failures. It's the EPA's fault. And they made it worse. But we're done. We don't need to do any more. It's the Michigan EPA, and they need to take the money that they use for climate change and what did they say? They said for climate change and for basically like studying it and learning about it and whether or not this is a big deal and Michigan needs to make any changes like what Florida has when it comes to all their water problems. And they said they should take that money and they should use it to fix Flint. That's what their solution was, to take money out of scientific studies to find out whether or not climate change is a big deal in Michigan and put it into fixing the pipes. Instead of actually fixing anything, they just said, just move the money from progress and put it into broken lead pipe.
Yeah. Now, in all fairness, there was some people that had been charged and fired, but just not by the federal government. It's all done locally. So back in July, there was 6 current and former state workers who were charged as in the criminal investigation of basically what happened, and they basically all face misconduct and office charges and willful neglect of duty. In October, the ACLU of Michigan files a class action lawsuit against school districts in Flint for exposing students to tainted water. Now, that just seems silly to me.
Yeah.
Why?
It seems frivolous.
It does. It just seems a little silly to me, but maybe
it's just like the schools had a choice at what water they were giving their kids. Like, what is the school going to just use rainwater from the roof? I don't understand where else they would give water to children.
Yep. It took till November. Finally, the state of Michigan and the city of Flint are ordered to deliver bottled water to homes where the government hasn't checked to ensure the filters are working properly. They say in the court documents that the leader of a nonprofit group helped residents that as many as 52% of the water filters installed have not been inspected or had samples taken from their homes. That's insane. That's just crazy to me.
Well, if they're trying to make a change and bring everything up to a safe, drinkable level, then yes, this is an utter failure of colossal proportions. And so they're done, right? They're done. We don't need to look into this anymore. I mean, there's all kinds of people that could potentially be in danger. Children, lead poisoning, mental health problems. There's a million different things that have major repercussions for lead and heavy metal and anything else that comes through a lot of these chemical-laden pipes from the ancient infrastructure that we haven't put any money into in a long, long time. Well, guess what? We're not done in Flint. And the GOP isn't done saying, well, we need to do more. Yeah, I know we need to do more, but you guys can't just stop doing your investigation now because it's not over.
Yeah, so what it feels like to me almost is that it's a cover-up, right? There's a few people that are going to take the downfall, and then the rest of them are going to go scot-free. So in December, at the end of December, 4 officials, 2 of Flint's former emergency managers who reported directly to the governor, and 2 water plant officials have now been charged with felonies. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to, stick, right? But they've actually been charged on pretenses and conspiracy. They are accused of misleading the Michigan Department Treasury into getting millions of bonds and then misuse the money to finance the construction of a new pipeline and force Flint's drinking water source to be switched to the Flint River. Now,
it was supposed to be moved over to Lake Ontario or Lake Huron,
but they took a shortcut.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be pulled away from the Detroit River, which was their source. And since they couldn't get the pipeline they were supposed to have, the only water source they had was the Flint River. And thanks to the Industrial Revolution level regulation that they just dump mercury and lead and who knows what from the American automotive industry. It's just right into the river because no big deal, right? And so, obviously, the Flint River is incredibly dangerous and shouldn't be drunk at all. And they had to deal with the different processes that they were not set up for to clean it. And that's why the water ended up making its way through. And on top of that, the old pipe and everything that they used to use, lead pipes and stuff, those old infrastructure pieces have not been changed. And when you shut water off, I don't know if anybody knows this, but let's say you shut the water off in your house, what they tell you to do is to run every faucet you have on full blast for a certain period of time, because when the water shuts off and then you turn it back on, it knocks stuff loose. And if anybody has ever done any plumbing or anything in a house, when you just, even a clean line or something you use regular, it's full of sediment. It really shrinks over time. And that kind of stuff knocks loose and is dangerous. Even if you have a clean home and an updated infrastructure, it's just part of the water setup. And Flint is, hundreds of years old. It's incredibly dangerous. And this is part of the infrastructure stuff that we talk about that needs to be invested in. Bernie Sanders and surprisingly Donald Trump has said that they would invest in, and he said that Donald Trump specifically said that he would invest in fixing and updating the infrastructure all over the major manufacturing centers and hubs of Michigan while he was pandering for our votes. Whether or not, when he is actually confirmed into office, whether or not he will do that, we don't know. It doesn't look good because the GOP basically said, we're done. So I'm curious to see if Trump will hold to those promises.
Well, so let's move back to the people that were charged for a minute here. So the people that were charged, they basically, what they did is, to get a bond for Flint, they had to lie about it. They basically said that they were going to use the money to clean up a lagoon inside of there, but instead they used the money to try and fix Flint. So now that's a little bit admirable, right? If you can't get money to help fix Flint, you lie about it. Okay, I could see that. But inside of that, they buried a clause about the bond application for one paragraph that requires the Flint River to be used to provide the city's drinking water instead of the other one. So they're being charged because they lied about it, but they also buried inside of the clause, inside of their skeeviness, they buried a thing to use the Flint River. Now,
they used to call these earmarks back in the day. That they would throw an earmark on a bill, so that this be like a weird little tag that was added onto the bill, and people would be like, okay, this is something added on. It's not that important, but eventually it became really important.
Yes. And so what they did is they basically, because everything became rushed, because they did go through alternative, we'll call it, channels, people were signing off on wrong things. People weren't paying attention to phosphates, to corroded lead pipes, to what could leach into the water. And that's what actually started to poison the kids.
Yeah.
So because the government wanted to move too fast to help solve the problem, that's what became the bigger issue. And that's why these people are being charged. But they report directly and they deal directly with Governor Snyder.
That's the reason the Democrats subpoenaed Governor Snyder right before Chaffetz said, nope, we're done. We don't need to subpoena the governor. We don't need his emails or any of his information.
Yes. And that's actually the whole point of this discussion again, is one, we don't want to let this die, right? Some of me doesn't want to let this die. I want to scream. I want to yell at the top.
People don't have water? Can't stop here. This is a big deal.
Yes. And that's why it bothers me some that we still haven't found a resolution a year later. And yeah, what got them into the trouble in the first place is non-moving government. But here we saw, 8 years ago, Obama went in and helped fix by creating some sort of loans for the auto companies to deal with their issues, right? To allow us to lend money back and they can pay us back. That worked out. He moved that through the system very quickly. It was all well thought out. They looked at all the different angles, saw the risks, and took them and moved on. In this instance, we're not seeing any of this. People want to talk about Flint, but nobody cares. They don't care. They're not doing anything. They're not making changes.
The election's over.
Yes, and we still haven't seen anybody move. And in all fairness, so Obama signed a law for, millions of dollars.
$170 million, which is a good deal with the estimate. As far as I know, is at least $1 trillion to rebuild all of the infrastructure throughout Michigan. I mean, Michigan itself, we're talking the major manufacturing hub of the entire country for decades. You know, you ain't fixing that fast, right? And digging up everything, getting under everything, getting those new infrastructure laid. We're talking, you know, Bernie Sanders said that he wanted to put $1 trillion infrastructure into the country. We need a lot of money put into this country, and we need to invest it back in. And I mean, this brings back into a lot of economic policy and stuff, and we'll see if anything of this gets put into the country, because Flint is at the forefront when it comes to the news stories. But there was an AP, Associated Press article that was put out, and it was picked up by The Guardian and The Independent in England, and they basically tested all major metropolitan areas of water east of the Mississippi. And they concluded that almost every major city is below average when it comes to what's considered safe by the EPA in the United States. So this isn't just a Flint problem. Flint is an exacerbated extreme case of like massive lead poisoning. But the entire country, when it comes to like the East Coast at least, is in danger because we've let things lax. We've gone by a short-term profit-driven ideal. And Flint is a great case of that. I shared something the other day about, if you heard about a Flint story like Flint happening in some place like Venezuela, which is an openly socialist state, you would hear about the horrors, the pitfalls of socialism. But we do not hear in this country the pitfalls of capitalism driving a city like Flint into utter damnation. And I mean, it's a clear case, right? This is a profit-driven corporate state, and we're looking at, you know, the results of corporations and profit driving our policy, and it's turned into a dangerous zone for tons and tons of people. But we won't hear about that being a major driving force to why these people are in danger. And so I would love to see those types of things being addressed, and hopefully we'll see something for Flint after the election and everything over now.
Well, and I agree, because they've been denied, right? They've been denied their rights as humans. They've been denied their rights to see closure to a situation.
They were promised for the last year.
Yes. And as you mentioned earlier, you know, what did Snyder do? He refused or ignored, whichever you want to call it, providing information. Now, hold on here. How many times, and I'm going to call Mr. Jeremiah Bannister out for a second if he ever listens to the show, but how many times did you rally against Hillary? How many times did I have to hear about Hillary because she withheld information about her emails and this and that? Here is clear, literally clear evidence that the same thing happened from Governor Snyder. He's doing the same damn thing. He is. He's refusing to provide information. He's refusing to divulge it. He's refusing to give information for a frickin' investigation.
Maybe we could ask Russian hackers to ask Guccifer 2.0 to break into his email server and give us some actual truth. I mean,
yes, because here we have the exact same type of issues that we had with Hillary, and yet, where's the GOP on this? Where is Trump on this? Where is anybody calling out Governor Snyder? Nobody's doing that. Why the heck do we have to be these people that call them out? I don't mind doing it, but for Christ's sake, we have people that said, we're going to stand by Flint. We're going to do this for Flint. We're going to go take care of Governor Snyder. We're going to go take care of all the issues, and yet nobody is investigating him. Not once has he been subpoenaed. Not once has he had to go to trial. Not once has he ever had to do anything to explain why he should be innocent in this.
Definitely.
Not once.
He's been given a free pass. And this is, unfortunately, this is the common thread when it comes to our American political system, is that once the election is over, like I keep saying over and over again, once the election is over and these hot topic things fall away, the American people stop paying attention. And these people just get, oh, I'm not on the frying pan anymore. I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing. And I'll finish off my term, and I'll take my benefits that I get for being a political leader for whatever period of time, no more taxes or whatever the incentives may be, and I'll go and make $1 million a year CEOing some big giant corporation somewhere. And this kind of stuff is irregular happening all over the country, and we need to pay attention to what the conflicts of interest and all of this kind of stuff when it comes to unethical behavior that our state and local legislators are also involved in. We can't just say the president is involved and in control of all these things. We need to keep the people that are locally involved and locally responsible for this. I would love to see Governor Snyder in front of a congressional committee saying, listen, pal, just like Wells Fargo was, like, what's your excuse? Why did you let it get so bad in Flint? What's the reason you thought this is okay? And I would love to see him try to explain his way out of that. Why haven't you given all of your emails up? What's the reason? Give us an okay reason. Just give us one. Then say it in front of this camera that we're going to broadcast your response to everyone. And I would love to see what it comes to when you hold his feet to the fire. But we'll never see that because, like I said, it's local election information and it's local small cities, and it's no longer the presidential election anymore. So it doesn't matter to the big politician until the next election cycle. Until I guarantee you, when it comes to the midterms, there'll be more Flint stuff.
I bet there will be, but hopefully it's to get rid of Snyder. Hopefully it's to get rid of him out of office, because not only do I detest him for this, I detest him all over the place, and maybe I'm a little biased, and that's fine. I probably am. I'm definitely biased against GOP people, but Snyder has not done very many things that I see as a benefit to Michigan. So we basically, in Michigan, have asked him to resign, but instead Snyder promoted him and gave him a raise. He gave an emergency manager of Detroit Public Schools a raise who is directly involved in this issue. And this guy got to hold on to his job until he had to resign in the growing further back in February. So we've got Snyder by the balls here, if you want to call it that. We can see him. And yet, meanwhile, he's avoiding testimony. They're avoiding testimony. Everybody's avoiding testimony. And now it's going to be up to the federal government to hunt him down. And guess
the
what?
GOP majority says we're done.
And they are. And the only positive that I could say that can come out of this is that hopefully he'll get to testify. Hopefully that he's going to at some point get put on the stand to at least be like, yeah, hey, I screwed up. At least admit it. We'd all feel better about ourselves if you could do that. But he hasn't done that. And he's still out there. And in the end, the people of Flint are the ones who are suffering. The people of Michigan are the ones who are suffering. And my tax dollars is going to employ a guy who has done the exact same thing Hillary has, and yet nobody is calling him out because nobody seems to care about Flint. And with that, we're going to end Cellar Door Skeptics tonight on a high note as I scream and rant about how much I think Black lives should matter, because it seems like nobody in this damn nation can take that seriously. We'll be back next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another live show. Have a good night, everyone.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.